Hello, welcome to another session of PEN Prithvi, the fortnightly online program that introduces you to poets and writers from India and beyond, working in English and other languages. We have had quite a lineup in the past few months, and today we are very, very happy to welcome Michael Creighton to our program. Admins, would you please promote Michael as a panelist? And let me quickly read out Michael's bio while that takes place. Michael Creighton is a poet, teacher, and library movement activist in New Delhi, where he has lived since 2005. Hi, Michael. His first collection of poetry, New Delhi Love Songs, was published in 2017 by Speaking Tiger in association with the Jahangir Sabawala Foundation. But what the bio doesn't tell you is that his if you've read his first book, which is New Delhi Love Songs, you are immediately struck by the absolute love affair that perhaps Michael has with the city of Delhi and with what it represents for him. And Michael, I just want to say that when I read your collection, I was immediately, it was it touched my heart, the sheer, the compassion and the love for Delhi and its people and for people in general that brimmed over from the collection. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's lovely to be here in Bombay.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So we are basically living in the Zoom and post geographic world, which is of course a consequence of the current pandemic that we are going through, and of course the consequent lockdown. So let me very quickly ask you how the lockdown has treated you.
I don't think we have time for that. I think
Well,
yeah. Well, we've been it's kind of. I mean, I guess in some ways it's easier for me to pop into Bombay and then be back, by in time for a nightcap. But it also just really makes the distance seem really big, right? So it makes you feel a long way from people you love, and then also, anyway, yeah, it would be a lot. I mean, the lockdown has been. I think it'll be something that we'll all be thinking about for a long, long time, and what stories come out of that, and what our understanding is of what it means is something we're going to be collectively working on for a while. Because I think for a lot of us, for a lot of people, it was kind of really traumatic. And I think that was more so, obviously, less so for people who had a home to live in and, the ability to get food when we needed to get food. It also, I guess, one thing I just will say in terms of, and I haven't really thought this through yet, but it divided the city, right? It just shut us off from each other. In Delhi, middle-class neighborhoods, rich neighborhoods, poor neighborhoods all live pretty close together, but the lockdown just shut those kind of connections very, very hard for a few months. And we were really unaware of what was happening to our brothers and sisters in other parts of the city until, it was that's something we'll be thinking about for a long time. Yeah. Anyway.
So true, so true. And I think you've touched upon a very, very important point there. And many of us really faced these, faced this sort of anguish over this disparity, over these conditions that were that the pandemic and the lockdown had created. But coming to your writerly life, how did you manage to get writing done in the lockdown, as some of us did, as some of us didn't?
Yeah, but the stuff that I did some, but I think it'll be a while before I be able to sift through that and think about what's going to be worth keeping and what's not, and what I'm going to be able to show to anyone and what I'm not. There's just a kind of the rules have changed, and so let's see. But I would say a lot of energy into figuring out how to use things like Zoom, how to learn how to to teach online, how to learn how to used to do my job, but also how to learn how to, we shifted the community library project, had to figure out how to do, create a virtual library, and a lot of energy went into sort of figuring that out. And, you know, many failures and a few successes, right? I mean, it's been difficult, but in terms of writing poetry, let's see, we'll wait on that. Some of those things need to sit for a while, I think.
Absolutely, as is true of most serious poetry. You know, you have to let it sit, let it brew, let it cook in its own juices, so to say, and then what comes out is you can take a cooler look at it later on. I totally agree. So actually, Michael, thank you so much for joining us today. You'll be reading out your poetry, I suppose, and you had also written that you would be reading some new work as well as work from your excellent book. So would you like to start the evening with a poem, with an opening poem?
Sure. I would love to. And I will just say that this is the strangest reading I've done in a long time, because, you know, you really brought the lights down in the house and it's hard to see the audience, right? So that makes it difficult. So, you know, I don't know, like, anybody wants to put something in the chat, you're welcome to. Nice to know that there's somebody out there. But I'll start with,
Absolutely. And Michael, let me just interrupt you for a minute to say that, you know, what further complicates the situation is that we have a live audience, but we're also recording this session and putting it on YouTube later. So you're going to have a sort of an audience which is asynchronously watching you later on. So yeah, that's a lovely image
it's always,
that you turn the lights down.
yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I've done a few of these, and usually there's more readers or more people afterwards, but it's still fun to sort of connect with an audience, and difficult. Anyway, I'll start with an ode from the first section of the book, Ode to Guava. I knew you first by another name. It was August, and an old woman seated on the footpath in the central market sliced bright green globes, sprinkled them with dark powder, and announced, Amrud. So naive I was in those days, so easily thrilled by the idea of you as forbidden. That infatuation was fleeting. What danger is there really in dry powder and cut fruit? But I never forgot the way your sweetness bore black salt and spice, and how you returned to me faithfully each August. If I lived in Kochi, I might sing for a banana, for a mango if I lived in Chennai, or an apple if I still lived in Portland. When my grandfather lived in Tampa, he sang only orange, but he told me once he loved you too as a young man during the war, ashore and far from home. I confess I might love only lychee if I dwelled on the cusp of May and June, but I live here in Delhi and I hold you above all others, yellow and soft or green and hard, salt or no salt, your flesh, your seeds, your skin. I leave nothing behind save your stem.
Wow. Absolutely magnificent. You know, this is just bursting with life like a ripe amrud, really. That's all I can say about that. It's I really love that poem, by the way, from the collection. You know,
Thank you.
that and a bunch of poems where you segue away from Delhi and talk about other places which are, you know, on the sort of near around Delhi. And of course the scintillating first ghazal is also beautiful. So
Yeah, I mean,
folks, if you haven't don't have his book yet, it's called New Delhi Love Songs. Is it available on Amazon, Michael?
yes, it's available on Amazon. Yeah.
Absolutely, and it's a wonderful hardcover book, beautifully produced, and of course the poems are simply sparkling. So what would you like to read next?
Well, maybe I could read a few poems from the first section, and then see where we go from there. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
This is a new. I stuck it in the New Delhi love song section. It's not exactly, well. Anyway, like I said, I'm not going to introduce it. Buzz. You were in my dreams last night. I was back in Oregon, sitting with the kids on the side of a rural road. They were drawing the red barn, and I was looking for chickens and wheelbarrows. My mother appeared and scolded me for not joining in with the art project. I said, Mom, the kids are having a fine time. Please just let me sit here and finish this poem. She shook her head, and I could hear her thinking, they'll be grown before you know it, Michael. It all happens so fast. It was right then that your text buzzed in my pocket. I didn't open it though, which was probably a good thing, because when I awoke, I found my mother had been right. The chickens and wheelbarrows were right where I'd left them, and the kids were already grown.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. And you know what? Again, the thing about place, you know, your strong sense of belonging, and this urge to, and this segue into, you know, memory and then belonging is absolutely beautiful. It's one of the things that really, you know, drew me to the book. So I really just wanted to ask you one question about your poetic practice, you know, which is that New Delhi Love Songs, especially the book, is a very coherent. I mean, it's clearly, you know, it's set in this very distinct historical and aesthetic space that we in letters know as Delhi, you know, which is it's not reportage, of course, it's poetry, but you know, it's set in this place called Delhi. Can you tell us a little bit about the origin of the book and how it spurred poetry in you, as opposed to, let's say, some other form of writing such as the essay or the memoir?
Yeah, well, I almost wrote a book on my commute, because for a year, anyway, I won't tell you about that. But I mean, this is a big city, I guess. And what I would say is that maybe there hasn't been as much writing about the city, poetry about the city, as one might expect. I mean, this is, you know, the obviously the capital of, and sort of the publishing center, and there's 20 million people who live here. And so I worked on poems for a year, for years. I mean, this collection is kind of pulls from like 10 years of writing. And I think that in the end, I decided, yeah, I mean, you know, it was hard, but I had to give up a lot of poems that I really liked, because I kind of didn't feel like they fit. And I thought that, I mean, I would just say there are many more books coming out these days, that many more people that are writing about the city. And I think that there is this sort of a new sort of, well, anyway, but when I first conceived of it, I just felt like the city deserved more, the places deserved, and so, yeah, I mean, so in the decisions about making the book had to do with kind of narrowing it down and deciding what fit in that sort of frame and what didn't. Yeah.
And would you describe yourself as a person who explored Delhi, or did the seeds of these poems come about when you were going about your everyday business in Delhi and then something struck you, or you actually walked a lot in Delhi, took photos, or took, you know, notes or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I walk a lot. That's kind of like a big recreational activity that we do in my house. We go for walks. My partner and I walk all over the city, and and also just yeah. I mean, and I'm an imagist. I'm interested in images. That's kind of like the that's what I really usually start with. I mean, so yeah, a lot of the stuff did come out of that. And then sometimes something else happened, and then you sort of find the images to fit that, right? I mean, it's, you know, poetry is not, these aren't memoirs. I mean, I don't look at it that way. Sometimes they are, maybe they could be read that way, but that's not what I'm interested in so much. Yeah.
Absolutely, it's a fraught exercise to treat poetry as a memoir. There is always some amount of change that takes place on the page. So are you, the next poem that you're reading, is it also from the book, or it's a new work?
No, I think I'll stick with the book for a little while, if that's okay.
Sure.
Maybe a couple of short ones that kind of go together in a way, maybe not.
Absolutely.
This one is South Delhi Roadside, 9 p.m. As you sell your last half-melted mango popsicle and start to push your cart home, you think that by now the ice must be melting high in Himachal. Perhaps she is banking the fire early tonight. Perhaps she is stepping out to piss. Perhaps she is watching winter wheat ripen in moonlight.
Oh,
And this one is, I guess you could read it as a study of Adeli Nala, a drain, which is a really interesting kind of thing to study. Or you could read it as a love song between the Yamuna and her lover, I guess. I mean, it depends on how you want to read it. Meeting. What feeds this long ribbon? Clean rain, crooked rows of brick and tarp, the ancient unruled quarters, Chiradili, Kotlagaon, Shapurjat, a thin flow of at Senek Farms by Sheikh Sarai. It is fat and ripe. Before dawn, shapes squat on these banks. By noon, pigs splash and root in the shallows. Above, boys sort trash and throw stones at dogs. Downstream, strong men strip off their shirts and bathe in a leaky main spray. In today's grimy sky, the evening sun glows like an electric tangerine, and wood smoke from campfires covers the scent of swamp gas and sewer. Sometime tonight, this slow current will join something larger. Somewhere, an old woman will sing an old song. After so long, the moonlit night has come. After so long, this meeting.
wow. Maybe it's a bit impertinent of me to say so, but I would really love for New Delhi love songs to be translated into Urdu or into Hindustani. Because this sort of register that,
Well, I
for
would
instance,
too. I mean, it would be nice to find a publisher for it. A friend, Sujit Prasad, was working on that for a while, and I don't know, like, I mean, it's just poetry's hard to find a place for, right? Anyway, so but let's see. It would be fun, right? It would be really fun.
yes, and the reason I said so was that the registers in this, the longing for the metaphor of the tributary meeting the river, for instance, or that of people, life overlaid on this life of the river. It really reminded me of a lot of Urdu nazms or Urdu ghazals, which explore this sort of register. But I loved it. It's wonderful.
Yeah, thanks.
So, yeah.
Maybe I could read a ghazal, not the one that I normally open with, but a different one. Would that be okay? I mean, I'm trying.
Absolutely.
It's fun, okay? But that seems like a good segue. Wish. I am a man of faith. I never doubt you. And when I think of need, I think about you. You cry when sparrows fall, but you defeat me. There is no army standing that could rout you. Some nights I wander seeking untouched places. You taste of salt and jasmine as I scout you. I'm just a fountain, you're the spring that feeds me. I breathe your wetness in and then I spout you. Named for the archangel, but still I've fallen. Salvation's just a prayer, a wish without you.
Wow. A ghazal, and yet a departure from the traditional schema of the ghazal, because the last verse with Michael, with the name of the poet, and the first verse with both rhyming lines. That's you. So you also played with the format, with the form a little here. But,
a little bit, but I am named for the archangel.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah.
So,
yes, that's
only a little bit.
My
right?
mistake for not catching that reference.
No, it's okay.
But it's a wonderful ghazal, and it's just the naturalness of the rhyme, which is of course what makes the ghazal succeed as a ghazal on the page. It's just very, it's sparkling, it's playful, it's ludic. It really works on the page a lot.
Well, I mean, I think that there's also another like what you were saying. There's sort of a fun thing you can do with ghazals that I say sometimes when I get to talk to university students or something. But if you get extra credit points if you can create an ambiguity in the poem. I mean, are we talking about a divine love or sort of something a little bit more down to earth? So that's always kind of fun to do as well, right? Yeah.
Absolutely, and that's also what the archangel reference does. It recontextualizes it into both these kind of things, which is of course what ghazals have done since time immemorial. Carnal and divine love overlaid layers on the same ghazal. So what are you reading next?
Well, I'm going to move to the next section of the book, which is on the Badapur border. And I will, this is sort of a section that is kind of more thematically arranged. I mean, some of these, I tried to break this, I tried to organize it as a book. And so some of them are sequences that are really sequences that in my mind, I mean, I'm just one reader, but like in my mind they are. And some of them are sort of more loosely, but sort of more around feeling. But let me just read the poem on the Badapur border. We take the violet line as far south as it will carry us and start walking into the borderlands. You tell me you are looking for a language with which to speak of this place and others like it, but I have little to offer. I'm not even sure what state we're in now. And when you ask, I can tell you neither the name nor the source of the dark pool that rests there between hard-worn bricks and hard ground. It hasn't rained for days, so I suspect it is fed by one of the small drains that runs through the jumble of shacks that line this road, but we're not close enough to smell it, so I can't be sure. There are mysteries in this land between city and sprawl that would take much digging to uncover. The origin of the cluster of well-built flats we passed through just now, or how much of the green and brown hillside near the railway tracks is trash and how much is soil, whether we should name it landfill or landscape. Of course, there are things I'm more confident of. I call that ox cart an ox cart and that auto an auto. And from their lean and smiles, I called the pair of straight-backed men that just pedaled past us friends. But in the end, so much depends on us. We'd agree that the rows of new and used bicycle wheels hanging outside that shop are cycle wheels, but while they remind me of a cycle mechanic I once loved in Portland, for you they will conjure something different and perhaps even more beautiful. I don't ask you about the fine dust that floats all around us, but to me it tastes like grief and home. And as for the smoke that hangs between us now, it is a ritual. But what I don't tell you is that for me, it is also a prayer, like the point in the Mass where the priest says, "Pray, my brothers and sisters, that our sacrifice may be acceptable."
Wow. Sorry. In this poem, it's a lovely poem about a journey, but it's also about the journey in a relationship, in a way of saying, right? A coming to terms with a certain stage in a relationship, as well as a journey through places. And that's really what really made this poem work for me. Of course, it'll make it, different things will work for different readers, but this is what really worked for me in the poem. Can I quickly ask you about, you said that this book was 10 years in the making.
Yep.
So was it mainly a redrafting exercise, or it was an exercise of accumulation and then winnowing of poems, or both?
Well, I think I started, I came to New Delhi in 2005, and I think I started, I didn't write poems for nearly a year because I didn't feel like I really had a sense. I mean, it takes a while to figure out where the cliches lie when you come to a place that's different. And so I kind of just felt like I needed to avoid doing that. And so then when I did start writing, it just kept on writing. And so at first it was accumulation, and then I actually put together a draft, and a couple of people who I respect said, this was maybe in 2009, 2010. So not, but they said, maybe it's not the best it could be. Like maybe you just, and your first book, I mean, it might be your only book, and you might as well make it really stick. So keep working at it. So then it became sort of more accumulation. And then I think, I left Delhi for 2 years and went back to the States, and came back in 2013 and started working again. And I did a reading at the Toddy shop with, and Jeet Thayil was there. And I said, I just have this many poems. And he said, well, if you write you write every day for 6 months, you'll have a book before you know it. And I kind of took him at that. And I didn't write for 6 straight months, but I wrote for at least a couple months in there. And I think that at that point, then it was just winnowing and kind of getting it down. I mean, a lot of people help with that, but Karthik and I are really sort of just helped me go through again and again, and we kind of argued. And some poems just I had to flip a coin about, and a lot of them had to go, right? But
yeah, absolutely. And it's hard to let them go, but it's also strangely liberating, because then you achieve the shape and the form that you wanted for the collection. What are you reading next? Is it a ghazal? Is it a free verse poem? What is it?
Yeah, I guess maybe I could read a couple from the next section, circle, which is a sequence. There's a sort of a shape of something in there, I think. I'm not going to give you enough for anybody to be able to figure out how that might work, but maybe just if you buy the book, you can read it and say, oh yeah, I think there's some kind of a maybe I'll start with the first one. Circle, Chor Minar. They say that some king used to fill the holes in this old tower with the heads of his kingdom's thieves, and the ghosts of the thieves' grieving widows still circle the tower at nightfall, even now, 7 centuries later. Each dawn brings new bird song and light, but there are some things we never forget. A head on a spear high above us, those who leave smiling and never come back. Yeah, actually, and then the next, maybe I'll just read 3 poems from this section that are sort of, like I said, to Shakti on the 8th anniversary of her death. And this is a prose poem, so it's not, yeah. I didn't go to work on your anniversary this year. It was accidental, but it seemed right when I realized. Mridu and I spent the day searching for the Yamuna. It took 16 stops on the metro and 2 3-wheelers to find it on ground blessed by the feet of Guru Nanak. We met a boy standing ankle deep in the mouth of a small feeder stream. The river was shallow and it stunk. The boy did not look up, but he told us he was searching for coins and that there was no path north along these banks. We headed back to the road. After a time, we turned east through a construction site. On a dusty path under a half-built highway overpass, we were greeted by a security guard who seemed to understand our quest. He didn't ask us to leave. He told us where we needed to go. We continued north to the point where the clean river mixes with the dirtiest drain in Delhi, and then just a few meters further to the Ghats where boys go to play after school. The river didn't smell there, but it was so shallow you could roll up your pants and wade across it. We didn't, but several people did. 300 meters further, we picked our way through the traffic, clogging the narrow 2-lane bridge that runs over the dam where the city pulls the water we drink. The edge of the road was adorned with garlands, plastic bags, and other broken offerings. North, through a gap in the wall, we saw deep water, the river as it should be. We didn't stay long, and Shakti, I confess, I forgot to pray, but I did think of you then, and again later further south as we drank beer and ate tofu at the second floor Tibetan joint. Through the window, we watched the wide, shallow waters lined with small farms and trees, and at that distance, Shakti, even a dead river looks lovely.
Yes, clearly it's meant for someone who's departed, and then they're coming to you in your memories, and it's beautiful. It's got a lovely cadence to it, a lovely rhythm to it, a lovely sort of mournful sort of rhythm to it, and it sounds it has a beautiful oral sort of atmosphere as well.
Thank you. Well, I see in the comments that I have a request to read the title ghazal, and so
I was going to make a similar request, but I reckoned. But I reckon that, yeah. Go ahead.
I used to joke that the publisher, like I signed it, part of the contract was I had to read it every time, and I like it, right? But anyway. New Delhi
Absolutely.
love
So,
song.
absolutely. So, yeah, wonderful, wonderful.
Okay. Smog and dust mix with the air in New Delhi. I buy jasmine for her hair in New Delhi. People come from everywhere to this city. All are welcomed with a stare in New Delhi. The finest things don't come without danger. Eat your street food if you dare in New Delhi. We push in line and fight all day for each rupee. Who can say what's really fair in New Delhi? There is nothing you can't find in our markets. There is nothing you can't find in our markets. Socks and dreams sell by the pair in New Delhi. So many families on the street through the winter. Sometimes good men forget to care in New Delhi. Friends asked Michael, why'd you leave your own country? I found jasmine for her here in New Delhi.
बहुत खूब. I'm glad you read it. although I suppose it is your most requested poem, Michael.
Yeah, actually, I mean, it actually is. Obvious, yeah. I mean, it's my, yeah, it is.
So I'm glad somebody made that request. So what are you? We are at the halfway mark, which is a nice place to be at because, sorry, we still have plenty of time left for your readings. So what is next? What are you going to read next?
Well, I guess one poem from the intoxication section, then a couple poems from the last section in Karwal, especially because I'm in Bombay and there's sort of a connection there. Does that work?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
Whatever you like.
Okay. Water and smoke. In the sudden rain, there's no escape from the dank press of men beneath the Panwala's tarp. Some smoke, some scowl, one laughs as he shoots red streams of betel nut juice into the flooded street. Last night I dreamed I dropped off the edge of the earth into rough sea, and now I see in my reflection in the window of a car running slow through rushing water, new lines, gray clumps spreading across the street. The asphalt mixer belches steam and soot, and the wind picks up, throws rain across our shoes. From a passing radio comes the high-pitched wail of an old Bollywood show tune. Tonight, a burning lamp will turn to water and smoke. 10 rupees buys a single then. Scratch, suck, glow, and the easy brush of shoulders and smoke.
Wow.
Back before we had to do physical distancing, I guess.
Yeah.
So maybe we go to Garhwal if that's okay.
Absolutely.
And, I mean, this is the one place where the book, not the one place, but the main place where the book sort of leaves. And I would say it's written as a sequence. And I mean, I sort of had been thinking of Kalatkar's Jazuri while I wrote some of this. So some of that comes in directly, but there is sort of it's not a direct narrative like that book, or not a direct, but there is sort of a narrative in there. But maybe I'll just start with one that is kind of says something about my sense of poetics. A woman feeds goats on a hillside. She is feeding the goats outside her hillside home when we meet the mother of the boy with a broken back. He'd been gathering firewood high in a tree 5 winters ago when he fell. It happens every year in these hills. Months later, a strong man found him lying in this home with bed sores big enough to swallow a fist. The man and his friend found a doctor and carried the boy on a plank down this trail. They took him by cab to the city. What good is a wheelchair in hills such as these? Later, I will meet the boy turned man in Delhi. I will see him dress himself and load his folding wheelchair into an auto. He will post videos from his smartphone and fly to Bangalore to study computer science. Every word I have written is true. Broken back, bed sores, strong man, smartphone. but by 5 years could fill an ocean, and elision's a conjurer's tool. Only this much I am sure of. A woman feeds goats on a hillside, missing her faraway son.
Wow. And one line from that poem on hills such as these actually comes from a poem from Jesuri, which is an old woman, which is about an old
And
woman
I am
on
so glad somebody noticed that after all these years.
well,
Lovely. I mean, that makes my day. I'm so glad I came to Bombay. I thought maybe that.
well, we are all Jesuri fanatics and Kolatkar fanatics here, so we
Well,
live and breathe Kolatkar's Jesuri and other work.
So that's lovely, and so we may see that again. I mean, but seriously, but yes, I mean, I know it's a very different set of hills, but yeah, that's fun.
Yeah. But this really, I mean, it's wonderful how this sort of parallel is established by that pivotal line, and that reference is just woven in beautifully into the poem.
So I'm going to do two more short ones from here, and then one more. So 3 more from here, 2 together, and then I'll get into. And these are sort of a pair, brother and sister. Brother.
Okay.
His mother said it had been cold, so they tried warm oil and prayers for days before they carried him down the hill and caught a bus into town where the doctor said, "Too late, you've come too late." His family taught him how to speak with face and waving hands, simple feelings, actions, things, places to go and leave. He must be grown by now, but he was 12 the year he walked us past the temple to the school high up there on the hill. The doors were locked, the students gone. He'd never been that close. He peered through windows, studied desks, and did not want to leave. You asked me how would longing feel without a word to hold it. Sister. Later, the bare shelved shack, the deaf brother, the sick cows keening. But right now, she's sitting next to a half-dug field of potatoes singing. The melody is cousin to some minor key, the words about Dehradun in the spring. No clouds above, but in this breeze, the taste of evening rain.
Wow. I wanted to very quickly talk about your endings, the way you end a poem with poignancy, with a certain uptick, but never with a certain, your poems don't thud home. There is a lightsomeness to the, if that's even a word, there's a lightsome sort of flavor to the endings. And that's what I really liked about this poem as well.
Yeah, I appreciate
there's
that.
certain delicacy there.
Yeah, no, well, in the beginning there was too many. I mean, yeah, thank you. I appreciate. I'm glad you see it that way. So I will. I don't probably need to introduce this poem to a Bombay audience, but it's fun anyway. It's an old woman after Kalatkar, and I guess if you know that poem, you'll see some of this, and then we'll do some new stuff. There's a purpose behind our choosing which stories we conjure or board, like this train rushing south through the flatlands or the bus we pass heading north. I'm only a common magician hiding balls under fast-moving cups. You'll see what I choose to show you. My tools are omission and flux. The point's not the watching or telling, but the struggle to see and to touch. What's under the cup I'm not showing. I can't say, but I'm sure of this much. I have seen the temple walls fracture and boulders break into sand. I have heard the falling skies clatter. I'm reduced to small change in her hand.
Wow. Again, the last line from that poem. And I really love the rhythm in this poem as well. Apart from the poem itself, I love the rhythm. And, especially when you were reading your ghazals or some of the more formal sort of part of your poems, I got the distinct sense that, if someone were to sing these, they would settle very nicely into song. Have you ever consciously written for the singing voice, a ghazal or two, or you don't have that in mind?
Well, I do. I write for meter, right?
Yeah.
Or I mean, that I don't, not always, right? But that always is a question that I ask as I'm writing something. Sometimes the meter will drive the poem, even if it's not like the meter, like it may not be an iambic pentameter or whatever, but sometimes, and then sometimes, yeah. So yeah, and then I guess I will also say that, you know, when I was 18 years old, 19 years old, 20 years old, I wanted to be a singer-songwriter, and then I gave that up for 10 years and didn't even think about it. So yeah, anyway, I did write one song. Anyway, yes.
Yeah.
So maybe a couple new poems.
Please,
Since
please.
you're from Bombay, and maybe you'll appreciate this, is I wrote a sequence for children, and these are two short poems from that. And the first one, I wasn't going to read it, but then I thought, oh, this is Bombay, so maybe somebody will appreciate some of this. All those important images. So this is for young people, but I mean, I kind of. Sometimes an image flies off the page like a butterfly hinging around itself before it disappears. And your teacher may ask you about an image like this. What exactly depends on the red wheelbarrow? Why is that fly buzzing? How did a barefoot woman manage to become queen of a busy intersection in downtown Bombay? And those are lovely questions, and maybe someday you'll find an answer to one of them that will be clever enough to make your teacher proud. But if you aren't sure yet, just gesture out the window towards a poor old woman munching on plums on a street in some faraway city and say, ma'am, it seems to me they taste good to her.
Delightful, delightful. So full of references and so warm, so warm. Beautiful. This is new work. This is new work.
Yeah, I mean it's all relative. It's all post the book. Yeah, I mean I have so many different like sections of things that I'm working on. You know, a bunch for
Uh,
kids and a bunch for other things too. So listen, I did promise a few poems on Facebook on mental health stuff. Can I do a few of those?
Absolutely, absolutely. Please, please do.
Brand new. I mean, um, and so I promised a ghazal, a sonnet, a villanelle,
Yes.
ghazal, and a bad dream. So that's formally speaking, right? And then maybe
Yeah.
one poem, and then let's see if we have any time. So, Melancholia sonnet. So now this is getting a little more serious, but there we go. For many months, we've watched it come and go like the desert dust the warm winds blow. To me, it tastes like fog and heavy smoke, the way it fills the flat with weight and woe. I can't imagine what it is to you, though every night I wonder as I turn. Perhaps it is a box of doubt and pain, well mixed with borrowed grief and fear or shame. Are its sides unsanded? Do they scrape? Does it have a key that you've misplaced? Things that get no sun will rot and stink like unturned compost in April heat. You say you'd like to leave, there is no point. I do not agree, I do not agree, I do not agree.
Wow.
And then a villanelle. I guess it's because it's clear enough, I guess, if you read it, but it's a cutting villanelle. It's called It's Never a Cure, It Is a Trade. It's never a cure, it is a trade. You want to care, to grasp control, a mighty power lies in that blade. You say, you can't say why you often fade. This haze weighs hard on body and soul. It's never a cure, it is a trade. One pain gained, another stayed. A flash of light in a cold black hole. A mighty power lives in that blade. You lock the door, pull down the shade. Old shame returns to claim its toll. It's never a cure, it is a trade. Can it be counted? Can it be weighed? Is there relief in calling the cold? A mighty power lives in that blade. My friend, I've raved and I have prayed. Please let me help you lift this load. It's never a cure, it is a trade. A terrible power lies in this blade.
Wow.
And then I guess I'll do a guzzle. I gotta think of time for a guzzle and a couple others. Yeah. Anxiety guzzle. It's hard, she says, to doubt the churning flame, to douse the churning flame. The first step's understanding, learning flame. Feel it in your stomach, how it moves. Name it if you can, this turning flame. How real, how large, how urgent is its source? Is it fantasy or warning flame? A few strong beers will give you rest tonight, but drinking only feeds the morning flame. Step back and look, it might seem less extreme. By seeing, we can cool the burning flame. It's simple algebra, the teacher says. Fear multiplied by yearning equals flame. You know, maybe just a couple more from that sequence that are related. And we'll see what we want to do after that, depending on what you feel like. These are a pair. These are kind of a pair if you, and I won't say more than that. Flash. In the night, hard thunder and rain clear out the heavy smoke. You buzz with each new flash. You say you feel healthy again. In the morning, the sun is bright and the sky straight above you is blue, but it mixes with haze near the ground. The horizon's a dirty fog. You were right last night when you worried the weight would be back in the morning. You crawl back into your bed. You can't move yourself from your bed. And Hey There, Pilgrim. It's John Wayne, which has nothing to do with the poem, or maybe it does. Hey there, Pilgrim. I really couldn't help it. I was working from a colloquial version of the play, and as we all know, sometimes things like this just happen. Anyway, don't take it all so literally. Sometimes the song is just a song. You were washing a half dozen eggs in the kitchen sink. Did you hear the pigeon on the balcony coo? Damn it, Juliet, I'm gonna miss you. You said the eggs in the sink hatched into adolescent chickens. And late last night, when lit by the flash of his camera, the rain looked almost like glitter or stars in a faraway city where the clouds and dirty haze don't weigh so heavily on the sky.
Bah. Absolutely, absolutely beautiful.
Thank you. So what would you like to hear? Do you have any idea? I mean, you don't know. I have a bunch of new poems. I could read some more, or you could, it's up to you. I've got a stack of poems and I'm kind of,
Yeah, let's have a few more. We do have, in fact, 10 minutes. So
okay.
which is a decent chunk of time.
Okay, I just didn't want to stop. So anything that so I will read one more, I guess, from that selection, because this is really the bad dream. Maybe it's not a bad dream. Let's see. It's part of the same sequence, so you can kind of read it as that. Night on the town. As is often the case in situations like these, things were changing fast. One minute we were in a big colonial era garden just outside Darjeeling. The next we were in the parking lot of the mansion in Portland where we'd held hands long ago for the first time. But anyway, it didn't matter. We convinced the caretaker to let us in, and we almost kissed in a closet, but he interrupted us. No matter, we went home to pack for a romantic night in a dive hotel on Africa Avenue, or was it Burnside? No matter, we caught a bus with our daughter back to the mansion, and on the ride home, we met a young man, drunk and loudly proclaiming the absurdity and hopelessness of the world. And I saw you talking to him so lovingly, but he was weaving and holding a bottle of Kingfisher Super Strong. And I was afraid he'd spill it on you and our daughter. So I began to talk to him. And as I was talking, I found I was loving him also. And he calmed and sat down just before I realized that our bus was going the wrong way and that we still needed to drop our daughter home before we went to that hotel. But there was really no hurry. We never got to the hotel. We never do. In the morning when we discussed it, you asked me if the sad young man had been our son. And I said, yes, of course, he must have been. And how is it that you always seem to understand these things so much better than I am able?
Wow, absolutely. You know, the compassion really gets through to you, to the listener. Absolutely.
Thank you. So one more fun one, just because it's another one for kids, and it bears reading when one is writing or reading poetry about that could be read in many different ways, and it's just a little lesson in who the speaker is in a poem or not. Dear reader, a poem may be true or not, like any kind of writing, and you may never know for sure. Not knowing is exciting. And I may be the poet, but don't assume that's true. An I may be a long dead king, a cat, a fly, a shoe. So call the I the speaker. That's what I am advising. It sounds impressive, and my friend, it's truth in advertising. And we can be a lot of things: lovers, brothers, nations, or a speaker may be calling out, and we's an invitation. Now you may be the speaker, though here you are the reader, but you can be most anything, friend, dog, world leader. If you, my friend, dear reader, find this all a bit confusing, relax, breathe deep, and you may find chaos can be confusing.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. It's the rhymes are so natural. They just come so beautifully. You know, it's very rare to see now. You know, first of all, it's rare to see rhyming work to begin with, especially in Indian poetry in English, maybe right now, but also to see that those rhymes are done so beautifully and so naturally. It's quite refreshing. Thank you for the poem.
Thank you.
So we have a number of comments. You know, love your style of reading, beautiful. Va. The title, the titular ghazal is absolutely beautiful. Hope you read it too. Of course, that was the request, and so great. That's clearly you've struck a chord. So, are there any questions from the audience? If there are, please type them in your chat boxes, and we will, you know, and Michael can address those. But if not, then we can squeeze a poem or two in. So the audience should decide. Yeah. But if there are no questions, there don't seem to be.
All right. Well, I'll do just a couple really two short things from a larger sequence on, of all things, early humans. But there's many more. I'm not going to read those. These are kind of the most accessible, but meet again. You say you'll miss my stories. No, hang on a second. First meeting. Let's do that one first. Did we find each other one morning at the edge of a thinning forest, or while wandering under moonlight on an ice-swept rocky plain? Or were we on an island tossed together by a typhoon, or crossing over swampland that now lies beneath deep water? I remember the ocean, you say. Your eyes are closing now. You are drifting in my arms. Meet again. You say you'll miss my stories when I'm gone, that someday we'll go back and meet again in tall grass beside a dying forest, or while collecting shellfish at low tide. The April heat is up, the crows are calling. I'm looking for a road that leads to home.
Bah.
So I guess if there's no questions, I could do one more.
Absolutely.
That's just kind of a fun way to end.
Absolutely.
And they're poems. I mean, Jack Spicer wrote a book. It's got Lorca. I can't even remember what it's called, but it's Lorca was dead when he wrote it. Lorca wrote anyway. It's a wild book. Jack Spicer was a San Francisco poet, so I wrote Jack Spicer a letter, feeling like since he was writing to Lorca, I could write to him. Maybe that was a fitting. I wrote him 2 letters, and I'll read those here. Dear Mr. Spicer. Or would you prefer I call you Jack? I'm trying to write a perfect poem, and I know that you are dead, but also that you understand the compulsion we sometimes feel to write letters to the dead. You said a perfect poem would have an infinitely small vocabulary, so by that standard, this one has already failed. You died the year before I was born. Is there anything left for us to say after that? Write to me sometime. I promise to reply. Dear Mr. Spicer, I read your letter to Lorca, the one where you said you wanted to write poems, not with images, but with real living objects, lemons, moons, boys in bathing suits, and how the trick was to accept that things do not connect, they correspond. And I've been looking all week for something in New Delhi that might correspond to your California moon, your California lemon, your California boy in a California bathing suit. And while I haven't had much time, with much luck, with lemons or moons, yesterday I was heading home in a bumpy 3-wheeler, and a young woman on a pink scooter shot by me on Africa Avenue, and the sleeves of her turquoise camise were rolled up, and her bright green dupatta was flying behind her like a string of parakeets. And when she turned her helmeted head and smiled at me, the auto lurched, and I called out, "Hey, Jack Spicer, wherever you are, I see what you were saying."
Oh, gorgeous, gorgeous stuff.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Michael, please work towards this as a collection. I request you. This is really, really good.
Thank you so much. It's been lovely.
So, and on that note, it's time to conclude the program. This was, Michael, I must say, this has been one of the most enjoyable programs that I have hosted as part of PEN Prithvi. Thank you so much for joining us today. So to the audience, the live audience and the audience which will watch this as a recording, I want to say PEN Prithvi is now online. We are a fortnightly platform showcasing writers and poets from India and beyond, working in English and other languages. Please follow us on Instagram at PEN Prithvi, on Twitter at PEN Prithvi, and we also have a YouTube channel, PEN Prithvi Webcast, where we upload each and every session. Thank you so much, Michael, and I wish you. I look forward to your next book. That's all I can say.
Well, thank you so much, and thanks to the audience. It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure reading.
Absolutely.
Oh, hey, one more thing. Please
yes.
come to Arun Sagar's book launch. Find it at the Community Library page, project Facebook page. It's going to be an amazing book launch with a chance to talk to him in person, small groups, big groups, really great stuff. So his book is A Long Walk in Sunlight. It's a lovely book, and you got to come to the launch tomorrow night. It's easy to find, and yep. So
absolutely. So the Community Library Project Facebook page, where Medha Singh, Uttarandas Gupta, and of course Arun Sagar will be in conversation.
It'll be a lovely event. Yeah. Okay.
So on that note, I'll say bye for now, and I will return in a fortnight with more wonderful guests. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye. Thank you.